Yechetayamanopistam stapitam yena bhutaleshvam apradamyam dadati svapadantikam. Vandeham shiyo shiyoda padakamalam shiyam vaishnavam sha. Shiyopam jagajatam saganaragnatam fitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savdutam parjanasaitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lita Shivashakam Vitamsham. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Chatpate Kopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate. Tapta Kanshna Gauranki Radhe Vrindavanashri. Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamama Maripriye. Vancha Kalpta Visha Kripa Sindhavisa Padnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Srinyavadi Paskachai Desatarani. We are praying to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Parampara that they may bless us so that we get understanding and realizations from this study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapters 13 till 18, that Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one who studies this sacred dialogue between me and Arjuna, that he performs devotional service. That's a part of our devotional life, to study Bhagavad Gita. And now we are studying the last chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, chapters 13 till 18. The first 6 chapters, we heard about Karma Yoga, that Karma Yoga, which is action on the platform of knowledge with Buddhi. And that Buddhi Yoga leads to Bhakti. That in the middle 6 chapters, Krishna spoke about himself, and he spoke about devotional service. That in these last 6 chapters, we will hear about Jnana. Jnana that leads us to Bhakti. That why does Lord Krishna speak this Jnana? He had said before in the 12th chapter, verses 6-7, that Yetu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananyane viyogana mam dhyantopashyate tesham ahum samudakhta mrityu samsara sagrat bhavamina charaparta mai avashita shetasam. So those who dedicate all their activities to me and who are devoted to me in all circumstances and engage in devotional service, fixing their mind on me, for them, O son of Preta, Krishna says, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. He's the swift deliverer. And that, so he wants to redeem his devotees, bring them back to the spiritual world. Now, in these last 6 chapters, he gives us the knowledge how to do that. How to elevate ourselves from the material world to the spiritual platform. And therefore, in this chapter, Lord Krishna will discuss 6 topics. These 6 topics we see here on the screen. That Bhakti, Purush, Kshetra, Kshatraya, Jnana, and Jneyam. First, in this chapter, we will discuss Kshetra and Kshatraya. Kshetra is the field and the knower of the field. That the field is the body and the knower of the field. There are two knowers. We will see the living entity, B, and the supersoul. And then Prakriti is nature, and the Purush, the living entity, thinks himself the enjoyer of nature. And then we speak about Jneyam, the object of knowledge, which is the supersoul, is to be known in this world, really. We will see. But then Jnana, transcendental knowledge. So that is the 6 subject matters which we will discuss in this chapter. The slides that I'm showing you after our session, I will post them on the WhatsApp group. You have them there as reference. But this is a typical question for an exam. I remember. What are the 6 topics or subjects discussed in the 12th chapter? And we have the Sanskrit on the screen. Of course, one must know also what it means. So we will start now with the first section today. First section, which will start with the discussion of Kshetra and Kshatraya. But first, we see in the first verse, Arjuna is asking a question. That Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Arjuna Uvacha Prakritim Purusham Seva Kshatram Kshatrayam Eta Veditumicchami Jnanam Jnenam Sakeshava. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam Sariram Kaunteya Kshatram It Abhidiyate Etayoveti Tam Prahu Kshetra Kshatraya iti dat vida. So that in the first question of Arjuna, the first verse, he's asking about this Kshetra Kshatraya Jnanam Jnenam Prakriti and Purush. Tell me more about that, he says. So Arjuna said, "Oh dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusa, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge." And Krishna immediately gives the answer to the first 2 terms, Kshetra and Kshatraya. He says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field of activity, is Kshetra. And one who knows this body is called the knower of the field, Kshetra. We are the knower of the body. We are conscious of the body. We are within the body. So this 13th chapter is probably the most difficult chapter to understand. But when we listen attentively, we take notes, we will understand it to a certain extent, and it will be very helpful in our spiritual life. So first, the body, Krishna says, is a field of activity for the conditioned soul. It's like a playground. A child goes on a playground, so many toys to play. We are here to play. These senses, these outlets of the body, to enjoy them, enjoy them, to experience the happiness of the senses. It's like a toy we got to play with material nature. But the play of the material nature, with material nature, it's not going well. We have heard already in the 5th chapter where Krishna says, Yes, one who wants to enjoy must suffer. So there's another side of the coin, of that playing, if it's done with the consciousness of I'm the enjoyer. But we try to dominate material nature. And because we want that, Krishna gives us this field of activities. Krishna reciprocates with our desire. Yeah. Now, the first thing we learn here, there's the kshetra and the kshetrajya. Now, the person is the kshetrajya, and the person should not identify himself with the body, should not identify him with the kshetrajya, with the kshetra. He's kshetrajya. That means we know that we are different from the things used. This body and these outlets are things to be used. It's not us. That's so any person can consider from childhood to age, he undergoes changes of the body, but he's still remaining the same person. In text 6, Krishna of this chapter will speak about these changes of the body. In text 7, he will speak about the elements that from which this kshetra is made. So in this 13th chapter, it's explained how the living entity comes in contact with material nature, and how it is delivered to the Lord through different methods of fruitive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and the discharge of devotional service. That 3 methods. So yes, what do we learn from these 2 first verses? So first we have to remember this body is made of these senses, and that's the field of activity for the conditioned soul. The living entity receives a certain type of body according to its capacity to dominate material nature. So we have got this body. Why? Because we want it. We want to control material nature. For this, you need a body. And we make the mistake to identify ourselves with the body. But we are kshetrajya, we are the knower of the body. The knower is different from the body, as the possessor is different from what he possesses. When Srila Prabhupada came in the Gurukul, in Mayapur, he asked who is the most intelligent student. And all the student pointed to one student. And then Srila Prabhupada asked the student, show me your head. And the boy went like this. And show me your hands. And the boy went like this. And so he went over all the body parts. And then he asked, show me now yourself. That's all yours, but where are you? And the boy was confused. That's Vyad, etc. Yeah. So these are the two first verses, but before we go on, I want to point to an analogy from Srila Prabhupada. And therefore I will share again here. And I think I have the, it still be here. That is my email, but is that what we need? So here we have two quotes of Srila Prabhupada. Is someone willing to read the first quote? Is it clear enough to read?
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
do you
so
want?
Please do.
The first quote, 1 to 2a. A farmer, Khetrogo, is plowing the land, Khetro. He knows that I am plowing this ground. He is planting the seed and reaping the results. And what is the fruit that one gets? It is according to what he plants. Similarly, the person, the soul, has a field which is basically this body, and the happiness and distress that he will reap from the field depends on the activities and he performs with the body. The body is called the field of the activity, and the doer or the soul is called the knower of the field. Yes. And the second one, do you want me to proceed on?
You can also read, yeah.
Okay. Khetro also means the platform or stage on which we are dancing. And Khetrogo means the persons who is dancing. When you dance, you know that you are dancing on this ground, on this platform. So you are the knower. Therefore, Khetrogo. And the platform on which you are dancing, that is Khetro. So in the material world, we are all dancing. How are we dancing? By getting a particular type of body, that is Khetro. There must be some platform. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, so what Srila Prabhupada in the first quote is saying is, it compares the kshetra, the field of activities, as a field. And the conditioned soul, the kshetra, by his desire to exploit material nature, is planting this seed, and he will get the results from what he is sowing, and that he will get the fruit accordingly to what he plants. So yes, the fruit is happiness and distress, and we get it, yeah, according to the activities that we do. So the body is the field of activities. In the second analogy, Srila Prabhupada speaks about the person who is dancing. It dances on a platform, and we have our dance on the platform of material nature, etc. So, of course, this dancing is for some time. Then you go to another type of body, and you get to perform another dance. Interesting. This is Srila Prabhupada. I'm going back now. Wow. Now, that was Kshetra, Kshetraya. Now we can go to verse 3. What do we learn here? Kshetrayam sapimam vidi Sarvakshatresu Bharata. Kshetra kshetra nayohyanam yattatsyanam matam mama. O sign of Bharat, you should understand that I'm also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and the knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. So Krishna explains here what Jnana is. Jnana, one definition here is given by Prabhupada and by Lord Krishna in the verse. Knowledge means understanding the difference between the body and the knower of the body, between the kshetra and the kshetra jnana. So we will be discussing now 3 different topics that 3 different topics. We will hear about the Lord, the living entity, and matter. So in every field of activities, in every body, there are 2 souls. There's the individual soul and the super soul. So Krishna says, I'm also the knower, but I'm not the individual knower of the body. I'm the super knower. I'm present in every body as the Paramatma of the super soul. This Paramatma will be discussed further in depth. But the super soul, Krishna, we heard before, is Maya, Akshana, Prakriti, Chucha, Cheja, Characha. The super soul controls material nature, and all living entities that move are born are not moving. So he's in our heart. He controls every cell in this body. And these cells are changing. He's controlling the changing of these cells. He directs everything according to the laws of nature. What we deserve according to our karma. Our karma is already in the movements of the cell. They will move as we deserve. And we will get a disease or we will get good health according to that. But it has to go to these 6 changes which are described in verse 6 further. So he's the super knower. So the Lord says, I'm the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. The individual may be the knower of his own body, but is not in knowledge of other bodies. So I'm aware of the pains and pleasures of my body, the worries in my mind, but not from another person. We are restricted to our kshetra, to our field of activity. But the super soul is a kshetra in all bodies and is controlling the bodies. So Krishna, is the original proprietor of is the original proprietor of the body. We are secondary proprietors. And Srila Prabhupada gives this analogy in the purport, that the king is the original proprietor in the kingdom, and the citizens are secondary proprietors. So this body is called kshetra. And one who dwells in the body, and are the Supreme Lord, is one kshetra, and the owner of he knows the body, but knows also the other kshetra, the living entity. So he's the knower of all fields, that is conscious of what everyone thinks at every moment. So perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body constitution of the individual soul and the constitution of the super soul, that is in terms called Jnana. Here we have a deeper definition of Jnana. Jnana, Prabhupada says, one who understands the constitution of the body, the etc., constitution of the individual soul, the etc., and the constitution of the super soul. These three. So these three are three topics that which are very important here. But then that and that's good to note that down. How to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the one who enjoys nature, that and Ishvara, the one who dominates or controls nature, the super soul. So we have Prakriti, nature, Purusha, or the living entity who tries to enjoy, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates the super soul in the heart. And that is compared to the painter, the painting, and the easel. Now, note that down, because that is clear for you, this analogy, that if it's been asked later, that you can explain. Oh, who is the painter? The painter is Ishvara, is Krishna. And what is the painting? The painting is the Purush, the living entity. And the easel is material nature. So the painter, Krishna, paints the living entity and put it in the easel, in material nature. So Prabhupada says one should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel. So there are two knowers. One is infallible, the other is fallible. Fallible and infallible. We will hear that at the end of the 15th chapter in the Trishloka Gita. There Krishna will explain there are the infallible and the fallible. That one is superior, the other is subordinate. So one who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These are the Mayavadis. The Mayavadis, they think the etc. and etc. The etc. Yeah, so the super soul and the knower or the living entity, they are one. Called monist also. There's only one soul.
So Maharaj, infallible is Krishna, Lord Krishna, and individual souls are fallible, or like.
Yes, in this context, yes. In the 15th chapter will be in another context. There, infallible and fallible means the liberated soul and the conditioned soul. And then Krishna will say in the 15th chapter, and I'm above the fallible and infallible. Of course, Krishna is also infallible, but he's above. And this Krishna, who is infallible and is above, that is meant here. Does that clarify?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So one who understands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge, Srila Prabhupada writes. A rope to be a serpent. If you see a rope and you think a serpent, you become fearful. So we think we are the body, and we become fearful because the body is going to die. So real knowledge is to know the supersoul. The supersoul controls the fields of activities and controls us, the finite enjoyer. So, what did we learn here? We have heard two analogies that we must remember. The analogy of the king and the citizens, and the painter, the painting and the easel. So we have learned that the Supreme Lord is the proprietor, the controller of all bodies, whereas the Jiva is the proprietor, the controller and knower only of his own body. Knowledge means to understand the position of Prakriti, Purush, and Ishvara, these three. That the Ishvara who controls both Prakriti and the conditioned soul and the individual soul. Well, I say conditioned soul, but it's individual soul. Because the soul is always controlled by Krishna. Either through the material energy, either through the spiritual energy. Always, we are the controlled. But under the spiritual energy, we have much more freedom. Now our freedom is restricted. There is also a quote that we will not read all quotes, but here there are three of one. We will read the second one. Difference in two knowers. Someone wants to read this?
Yes, I will read this Pushpanjali.
Please,
okay.
Please do so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Number 3, difference in two knowers. There are two words, paramama and paramatma and atma. Atma is individual. Paramatma is also individual. Both of us are knowers, are knower. Ketranyam, my knowledge may be limited. Krishna's knowledge is unlimited, complete. The difference is that Krishna knows everything throughout his creation, whereas I do not even know what is going on in my body. That is the difference. So how can one become God? That is not possible. God knows everything. If one knows everything, then you can accept him as God. Otherwise, don't accept him. As soon as somebody says, I am God, kick him in his face. Yes, you are God. I am God. I am the kicking God. That should be the answer. I am the shoe beater God. Now you protect yourself if you are God. Don't accept this false God. Krishnas to Bhagavan Swayam.
So after this Bhakti Sastri course, please don't kick anyone in the face.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
It is yes. Okay, but I mean, Prabhupada uses strong words, but he condemns it. Yeah, they are just fools. That's true. Now, the next quote I want also to read, because that's also an important point here. Because they say many times Krishna is immoral, he dances with others' wives. If someone can read that quote.
I can read it.
Thank you.
Just a second. Why did Krishna dance with others' wives? Because he is the owner of the bodies. Actually, he is the proprietor. Dehi Sarvasya Dharma. I'm not proprietor. He is a proprietor. So if the proprietor dances with his maid servants or devotees, what is wrong with this? He is their proprietor. You are not the proprietor. Super Souls is the real proprietor. Krishna says, Bhaktaram yagya tapasam sarva loka naheswaram. He is the supreme proprietor. Sahradam sarva khatanam. He is actually the friend. If I am lover, I am not a friend. Krishna is the real friend. So if the gopis dance with their real friends, what is wrong there? But those rascals who do not know Krishna thinks it is immoral.
Yes, that. Yeah, one man came to Srila Prabhupada and said, "Your Krishna is immoral. He dances with others' wives." Yeah. And Srila Prabhupada replied, "You are immoral because you think it's your wife, but it belongs to Krishna." So Krishna is the proprietor of everything. I'm half French, so many years ago when I was started to speak English, I said always the proprietor, le propriétaire en français. But then I came in England, I said, no, it's proprietor. Proprietor, I said. But anyway, I don't know. There are so many kinds of English that, but that's in United Kingdom. But Krishna is proprietor of everything. So yes, he dances with others' wives, but it are his living entities, his part and parcels. That and one who does not recognize that, who thinks this is my wife or my husband, that's a problem. Because we belong all to Krishna. That is a result of this knowledge. If we understand that, the practical application. Now text 4. We go back to our slides. Slides. The next one. Text 3. So we learned here in this verse the position of Prakriti, Purush, and Ishvara, the painter, the easel and the painting. And now that's text 3. First text 4. Tat shetram sa yat shayat riksha yat vikari yatasayat satsayo yat prabhavascha tat tamasinu meshvinu. Now please hear the description of this field of activity and how it is constituted. What its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what their influences, what these influences are. You see that word prabhava in the word for word translation, prabhava, it means influence. So my name is Bhakti Prabhava. Prabhava means influence. So my Guru Maharaj gave me this name. Now, with your influence of Bhakti, you preach all over the world. So Prabhava is influence. You have also Prabhava, that's something else. That there's a whole other meaning. It's Prabhav. So, what are the influences of this field of activities? Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, one has to know how this body is constituted, the materials of which this body is made, that will be explained in 2 verses further, 24 elements we will hear. Under whose control this body is working. It's working under control of Paramatma in the heart. Our control is very little, but he controls our heartbeat, blood going to our veins, every cell he controls, our digestion, what we can think. That yeah. How so? Under whose control the body is working, and how the changes are taking place. That's the cause of these changes. The body changes every second. We have a different body. Every second, cells die, new cells are born. Every second, our body is different. It's not the same as 1 second ago. And that's the super soul who makes these changes. What the causes are, what the reasons are, what the ultimate goal of the individual soul is, and what the actual form of the individual soul is. Spirit soul as a soul, as a form. It's at the end of the purport, but one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every body to be one with the individual soul. No, it's different. It's not the jiva. The jiva is the spiritual soul in this universe. The jiva is different from Paramatma. Because the Paramatma is the powerful. That he does everything. We get all power from him. It's something like equating the potent and the impotent. Srila Prabhupada writes here. So in verse 4, Krishna raises 5 points. And he will explain that later in this chapter. He will explain how this body is constituted in verse 6 and 7. In verse 6, he speaks about the 6 changes of the body, and in verse 7, 24 elements, Sankhya in depth, analyzing, and also in verse, and then the changes the body undergoes, and when and where the body is produced, the identity of the knower of the field of activities. Who are we? And the influence of the knower. What influence do we have? What influence does the super knower have? That now in verse 6 to 7, verse 6 lists 24 elements, and verse 7 describes 7 qualities of the mind, which it's deriving from the interaction with these 4 elements. And then that in verse 7 and 20 later, he will explain the changes of the body. No, not in verse 6, it's later. That, so now we will hear about 5. Text 5 is very interesting. It speaks about, in the purport, about 5 levels of consciousness. That in text 5, and 6 and 7 are the 24 elements. Text 5. Krishna refers to authority. He, as the supreme authority, says, you should follow Guru, Sada, and Shastra, and the Vedanta Sutra is the authority. Text 5. Rishibir Baudagitam Chandobir Vidadai Pitag Brahma Sutra Padasheva Hetumad Bir Vinishitai. That knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in the Vedanta with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So, learned scholars and standard authorities, they give always evidence of previous authorities. So, in the Srila Prabhupada explains, there are higher and lower nature that exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities, but the supersoul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature and is transcendental. That's the difference. So, the living entity comes in contact with material nature, its consciousness is contaminated. And according to the severity of the contamination of consciousness, going to that severity, there are 5 levels of consciousness. These 5 levels are the Brahma Pucham. Brahma Pucham. And that Brahma Pucham Pratishta. The living entity develops in this material world 5 kinds of consciousness. And this consciousness, they are described here on the screen. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamoya, or Manamoya, it's the same, and Vijnanamoya and Anandamoya. Annamoya first. Annamoya, that is the consciousness of food. Anna means food. That like animals, they are always searching where there is food, where there is food, when there is food. They depend on food for their existence. The birds are picking grains, are always searching for food where there is food. Also, a newborn baby, Annamaya, wants food. That food consciousness is the lowest form. Of course, many people in our society are also very food conscious. Try to eat a lot. But a little higher consciousness is Pranamaya. That one is not only food conscious, but there are others also who want food. I'm not alone. Sometimes animals become very fearful when they see another animal is going to take my food. And they have to defend themselves. That's Pranamoya. There are other, I'm not alone, there are other living entities. Then the next stage is Jnanamoya of Manamoya. This Jnanamoya is thinking, feeling, willing. One identifies with the mind. The thinking, feeling, and willing. One becomes interested in arts, in feeling, in science, in knowledge. That thinking, feeling, willing is there. That that's usually the adult human being is predominantly jnana moya. That, but there it stops. But practically no one is in Vijnana Moya and Ananda Moya. What is this Vijnana Moya? Vijnana Moya means I'm understanding I'm not a gross body and I'm not the mind. I'm different from the mind. That I'm different from this body. One gets transcendental knowledge and one understands I'm not this body. And one understands there's a process to get out of here. And one is interested in yoga and tries to get out of material nature. And imperfection is that someone understands I'm a part and parcel of Krishna. And therefore, I should perform transcendental devotional service. And then one starts that process. Then one is in Vijnana Moya. So that is most of us are in that stage now, predominantly. We are performing devotional service, we want to get out. And what's the purpose? To realize that we are the body, that we are not the body, that we are a spirit soul. But this realization has three levels: Brahman, Paramatma realization, and the
Bhagavan, yeah.
Bhagavan realization. And these are the three realizations. The jnana realization is, that I'm Brahman, that's the goal of the jnanis. The yogis, the bona fide yogis, who do not want mystic powers, they want Paramatma realization. And the devotee goes for Bhagavan realization, which includes Paramatma and Brahman realization. And when they realize that, they become blissful, Ananda, full of bliss. So that is here that the Kshatraya.
Maharaj, the first one, could you please give me one more time a little bit? The Annamaya.
Annamaya means, Anna means food.
Oh, okay.
Just... Yeah, we sing every day, Sarira Vidyajam, Yodantayata.
Yeah, I see.
Lev Sarisagre, Tarumadishvarati, Taru, Dishivarati, Lobomoshadumadi, Takshitakutina Samsare. Yeah, you have the word Anna in there.
And there is the middle word in the heading, Pucham. Brahman Pucham Pratishtha.
Yeah,
so
Brahman means spirit soul. The spirit soul is Brahman, but it enters material nature in 5 kinds of consciousness. These 5 kinds of consciousness, Pucham, Pratishtha, it enters these 5 kinds of consciousness when it's conditioned. See? And what the Vedanta Sutra is explaining, which Krishna gives here as authority, explains how to go from up to Ananda Moya and attain this bliss, the bliss of the spirit soul. That's the purpose of Vedanta Sutra. And that can only be attained really by devotional service. So that's the point made here. So Krishna is, what do we learn here in this 5th chapter? Yeah, so it's explained in the purport. Living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with Ananda Moya. Then he becomes perfect. And one has to search for this truth in the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is also called the Brahma Sutras, the sutras about Brahman, the sutras Sutra means very cryptic. It's encodes. Spiritual life is explained in the Vedanta Sutra in codes. It's so short that you cannot understand it. It needs an explanation, a commentary. Therefore, every bona fide tradition in India has its commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra. If you don't have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, you are not considered a bona fide tradition. So what is our commentary on the Vedanta Sutra? What is the first verse of the Vedanta Sutra? It's Janmadhyasya. Absolute truth is the cause of everything. What's the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam? Janmadhyasya yatam vayatitaratassa desa bhihyasvara tenevamaridaya atke moyanti atsuraya. It begins also with Janmadhyasya. It's a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Explains it perfectly, the Vedanta Sutra. But Vedanta Sutra has many quotes. One of the first verses is Aham Brahmasmi, I'm spirit soul. Another verse is Atato Brahma Jijnasa. Now we have the human form, therefore you should inquire about Brahman. So this Vedanta Sutra is very important, and Krishna refers to it as the supreme authority. And he tells it to Arjuna. Arjuna is his disciple. He's the guru of Arjuna. So, and he speaks about various sages in the verse. This is sadhu. Krishna says, yeah, as we explained before here, it's the guru, sadhu, and shastra. That's the authority, Krishna says. That's and then we have heard about this this Brahma, Puja, Pratishta, these 5 kinds of consciousness, always higher and higher consciousness, up leading to Anandamoya. And that is explained in Vedanta Sutra of the Brahma Sutra. That how to attain this all blissful nature. So the Supreme Lord expands himself to enjoy transcendental bliss. Therefore, the living entities are there to give him transcendental bliss, to serve him. But in the field of activities, in the kshetra, the living entity, thinks himself to be the Purush, the enjoyer. And therefore, he loses this Anandamaya. To get it back, it must dovetail again with this Anandamaya, only attainable by pure devotional service. And then he becomes perfect. There are some quotes about this, but they are too long to read. And we can't read them all. You can see five. Yeah, there are a few very long ones that we can read. One short one, I will read it. Etum abir finishitam. The Brahma Sutra is therefore called Nyaya Prastan, logic and reason. Etum adbir, cause and effect everything. Because people like to understand everything on the basis of philosophy and reasoning. Understanding without philosophy is sentiment, and philosophy without religious conception is mental speculation. These two things are going on, not combined. All over the world there are so many religious gurus, the religious systems, but there is no philosophy. Therefore, the so-called religious system does not appeal to modern educated persons. They are giving up religion, Christian, Muslim, Hindu. They do not like to undertake formalities and rituals. They want to know everything on the basis of philosophy. That is Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is based on philosophy, the system of Krishna Bhakti. Bhagavad Gita means Krishna Bhakti, devotion to Krishna, Krishna consciousness. So this is a great opportunity for people who like philosophy. Good. Going to 6 and 7. 6 and 7. To our slideshow. Just a moment. Yeah, we will hear that. These are all these elements. This is pure Jnana. 6 and 7, the last two verses of this first section. Mahabhutam yahankaro buddhira vyaktam eva sha indriyani rasaikam cha pancha sandhya gochara itvatveshasukam dukam samgatasya natatriti etat chatram samasana savikaram udaritam. The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifest, the senses and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate life symptoms and convictions. All these are considered in summary the field of activities and its interactions. So first, there are the 5 great elements that 5 great elements here. Earth, fire, water, air, and ether. 5 elements. Then there are the 3 subtle elements. The false ego, the intelligence, the mind, and the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes. That's interesting. That is Sankhya. So from false ego combined with the 3 modes, that it's 3. This false ego combines with the unmanifested material nature, and then everything becomes manifest. So therefore it's counted by Sankhya philosophers also as an element, this unmanifested state of the 3 modes. This is explained in the Bhagavatam. Krishna can do with all his senses, with every sense, spiritual sense, he can do the functions of all the other senses. So Krishna can create with his eyes, with his glance. And he glanced into, first what he did with his glance is putting Brahma, because everything is Brahman, spiritual energy. He put into Brahman the 3 modes of material nature, unmanifested. And this, in the beginning, these 3 modes, we will hear about them in chapter 14, were imbalance, goodness, passion, and ignorance. But that balance became disturbed when he injected the living entities which from previous creation, which were dormant in his body, which were full of material desires. And by that contact that created false ego, that false ego became manifested and started to combine with this unmanifest nature. By that it became manifest. That's the creation. You will hear in the Bhagavatam in 3rd canto, in 4th canto. But then from that, all the other elements came. Earth, air, fire, water, air, ether, mind, intelligence. That's all in combination with the three modes of nature. I could explain that in detail, but that would be outside the scope of this presentation. But then there are 5 objects of the senses: smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. That yes, and 5 working senses: the voice, the legs, the hands, anus, and genitals. 5 senses acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. And this is the aggregate or the total of 24 subjects that so these 24 elements, they are studied by Sankhya philosophers who are studying, trying to understand the difference between matter and spirit. So Krishna has said that's knowledge between matter and spirit. And by understanding what the elements of matter, they understand that I'm not neti, I'm not that, I'm not that. I'm not smell, I'm not his legs, I'm not his false ego, I'm not his ether, air, water, and the elements of this house, but I'm not these things. That's the purpose of Sankhya. And besides that, Krishna says there is desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are interactions of the mind and all these elements. That interactions and representation of the 5 elements in the gross body. Yes. Yeah, it are representations because we hate what gives pain to the body, and we like what gives pleasure to the body. It's subtle, but it's all related to this field of activities. That therefore Srila Prabhupada says, yes, desire, hatred, happiness, and distress are interactions, representations of these 5 gross elements of the body, but very subtle. It is related to them. So the living symptoms represented by consciousness and convictions are the manifestation of the subtle body, mind, ego, and intelligence. These convictions. Yeah? The 5 great elements are a gross representation of the false ego. Because the false ego identifies with these gross elements, therefore. It's subtle representation of these elements. And then he speaks about this unmanifested nature, these unmanifested states of the 3 modes. They represent the unmanifested states of the 3 modes of nature. Unmanifested modes of material nature are called pradhan. So it's the false ego interacting with that pradhan, and then prakriti comes about. So material nature is created by the material desires of the living entities. That's the reality. Therefore, Krishna gives the material world because we desire to enjoy matter. Although Krishna does not desire that. He does not want us to do that. But we are his sons, and Krishna said, okay, you want to do that? You are sure you want? Okay, you have the experience. I give you what you want. And that is Krishna, is our Supreme Father. We are not obedient sons. So the body is the representation of all these factors, and there are changes of the body, which are 6 in number: born, grows, stays, produce, byproducts, children, it decays and it vanishes. But therefore, the field is a non-permanent material thing. However, the kshatriya, the knower of the field, is a proprietor, is different. So we are different. The kshatriya is different from these 24 elements. 24 elements. Some Sankhya philosophers say the 25th element is the super soul, and the 26th is the soul. Different ways of counting. So for us to be realized that we are different from the field, that and are we always, Krishna quotes authority to back up his words, this Vedanta. We should also always do that. Now, I have a little assignment for you. We are going to break up now for 10 minutes. It's 12:15, right? Nearly. And we will break till 12:30. But before we break, I want to ask you, think about, Krishna says, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. If you have only Guru and no Sadhu and Shastra, no devotees, no scriptures, only Guru, what's the problem? If you have only Sadhu and no Guru or Shastra, what's the problem? If you have only Shastra and no Guru and no Sadhu, what will be the difficulty? If you have only Sadhu and Shastra and you don't have a Guru, what's the problem? If you have Guru and Shastra and you don't have the devotees, the sadhus, what's the problem? If you have Sadhu and Guru but no Shastra, what will you do? All these combinations give problems. Think about it. And we will continue at 12:30. We have a short break. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.